Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to Have More Money Now. And of course, we couldn't do it without our host with the most, former world champion, and your friend and mine, John Layfield. John, how are you, man?
Conrad, I'm doing fantastic, and I'm very excited for this week because when we started up this show, we talked about having guys like this, but this guy is special to me. He's one of my favorite guys on the whole planet. He's had a very successful second career after wrestling, but this is what our show is all about, so I'm really excited about today's show.
I can't wait either. This is one of the few that I've never met in all my time in and around the wrestling space.
He's one of the best guys on the planet, and I don't know how he's still walking, by the way. He has rubber bones.
Uniquely qualified to join us in our discussion. Why don't you introduce our very special guest today, John?
Yes, sir. The best Dudley of all time. No offense. Actually, a lot of offense to Bubba and Devon. He is Spike Dudley. He's my dear friend. Spike, welcome to the show.
Howdy. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to get beat up next time I see
you. The heck with him.
Good stuff. So
yes, it certainly is. And I tell you, it's so fun to see. I see Devon all the time. I don't see Bubba that often, but I see Devon all the time. He's just the most pleasant guy. He is doing his best to repopulate the entire planet. He does have about 400 children right now.
Yep. And always working on 401. Always.
That's right. That's right.
He likes to procreate.
Hey, Spike, how did all this start? You know, you're in wrestling just like I am. You know, back in the day when you wrestled like we did, and especially the generations before us, you were on the road all the time. You didn't have time to do other things, so we didn't have time to make a lot of contacts. We didn't have time to do get other avenues of anything other than wrestling, because that's all we really had time to do, because you're on the road all the time, especially before the internet, before cell phones. They started coming in as we were there, but before all that, you didn't have a lot of contacts. How did you migrate into a second career after wrestling?
Desperation was the biggest thing. So when my career was winding down, I was starting new life, family. We knew kids were on the way, and I needed a job. And I truly didn't have any plan whatsoever, backup plan in that sense. And just out of the blue, I ran into somebody, hey, you should try this. And it was selling life insurance, of all things, which is a horrible way to make a living. It's all sales, it's all commission. And if you don't, and you actually have to pay them, it's just ridiculous. But the positive thing was that it got me licensed in the financial world. So after a year or two of doing that and making nothing, I had enough of the licensings to go into apply for a financial job, and it wound up being with Merrill Edge. And the role it's called transition services. And the basic description, 90% of what I do is when somebody dies, their assets, their money, their accounts have to go to either the beneficiary or the trust or the estate. And I take the call of, hey, family member, my wife died, my husband died, my parents died, whatever. And it's okay. How do we get their money from A to B? And it has a lot of variety. I describe it, you do a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of financial advising, a little bit of attorney stuff, psychiatry, because sometimes there are emotional calls, but the end goal is that you're trying to help them at a time of need and trying to get them, hey, you're coming into these assets. This is your parents' legacy, your family legacy left to you. Do you have a plan? Do you know how to invest it? Do you know how to make it grow? Do you know how to make it last for your life so you can pass it down to whoever you want to pass it down to, and not just burn through it in 6 months? So it's pretty interesting, because for the most part, every call, because I only deal with people over the phone, every call is different. Every case is different, and it's short term. I mean, I get them where they need to go within a matter of a week to a month, and it's constant turnover. So it's never really boring. It's never dull. It's never the same thing twice.
Yeah, did you have to take the Series 7 and Series 63? Because I had to take those. And oh my God, those that don't know, those are like 4-day long tests. It's 90% of stuff that you will never use in your entire life ever again, except for that test. Those things suck. Did you have to take those?
Yeah. And I swear it's funny because I had to do all like the margin options math stuff, and
Yeah.
God, I couldn't tell you how to calculate it. I didn't remember anything of it. Not that I ever have to use it, but all of that stuff, you just cram it into your head for months until you're ready to take the test. The only thing that's good is it's pass fail. It's not like
Yes.
it's right. So
That's right. You don't get a benefit for making an A or an A plus. All you
Right.
got to do. I think it was 70. I think it was that you had to pass, whatever it was, and as long as you do that, it doesn't matter. It's just as long as you're in the green.
right, yeah. So that's not fun, but once you get it, you're doing all right. Then you can kind of take off. But it worked out well. So I mean, now I switched over to I'm with Fidelity now, which is a tremendous company. It's a great company to work for. And I've been with them. This is my 5th year with Fidelity, and I think I'm probably going to be here until I retire, whenever that may be. But,
What is the biggest thing that you've learned from this? Dealing with people,
learn how to.
Go ahead.
That's the biggest thing for me. I mean, I didn't know all this stuff when I was making money. I never thought about it until it was too late. Like so many, people that have been through sports. I mean, I really stress, especially when I get somebody that's younger, long-term plan. I mean, it's not about what you make. It's what you save and what you don't spend. I mean, there are so many little tricks to saving money and invest in it. And I mean, the biggest thing, what you get a paycheck, you take 20%, 25%, you tell yourself you are never spending 25% every paycheck, and you put it away. And I don't care what you put it in. Throw it in a money market account. Who cares? But get it invested and don't touch it. You hear crazy stats like people, you go to work every day and you buy that $6 cup of coffee and your lunch, and you're spending $50 to $100 a week easily just on like takeout food. Pack a lunch, take that $100 a week, put it away. If you do that for 10, 20 years, you got $100,000. Like
Right.
I think the United States, especially public schools, absolutely should stress financial planning from the early ages with kids, so they have a clue.
Yeah, Spike, I agree with that. I've always thought it's a matter not of intelligence but of education. People are smart people, but our schools do a horrible job of educating them to some of the most important things in the world. And no offense to English and English lit and all that stuff, but the stuff that people need also is how to balance a checkbook, how to save money. When people come to you, what you kind of were telling us before we got on air was people have no idea, but it's not their fault. It's not, again, it's not a sign of intelligence. It's a sign of education. I think we do a really poor job in this country of educating people what to do with finance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing because I mean, I have ranges. It doesn't matter the dollar amount. It could be like $25 in an account, and I've got to deal with it. And then you can have millions in an account. But I've come across so many people over the years that, they never made more than $50,000, $75,000 a year, but they were smart with it. At the end of the day, they've got $2 million in their IRA because they were smart with it. I don't know if it's true. I've heard it that like 90% of the United States millionaires, they didn't make more than $100,000 a year. They just didn't piss it away on unnecessary spending. It's about being smart with your money. As I said, it doesn't require a huge paying job to become wealthy in the United States. You just have to be smart with your money.
And what do they do with it? And I know you're saying they're not spending it, which is the main thing, and they're saving, which is the main thing. But what do they put it in?
Well, I mean, if you want to be conservative, mutual funds are always the best way to go, I think, just because they're diversified within itself. I mean, if you're young, that the rules. If you're young, you can afford to be invested in stocks because high risk, higher chance of payout, but also higher risk of tanking. Mutual funds are nice because they're automatically diversified. Each fund is comprised of 20, 30 different investments in one share. So that those are, for people that aren't into studying the market, that's a nice way to go. I mean, long-term CDs, bonds are good, but those are very conservative, but you're not going to lose anything depending on whether it's federal or state. That's a whole different story, but it's a mix of things. You always want to be diversified. I mean, and I firmly believe if you can afford it or you have leftover stuff, throw it into those gold or silver because those never really seem to go down, especially when the market goes belly up, then that's when like those precious metals. But it's diversification. You know, you can't do too much of any one thing. But and again, this is also the area where I don't get into the whole let's put together the portfolio. That's not my specialty. I get them to the people that do that. So my uneducated 2 cents is diversification.
All right, John, today we're excited to welcome in a brand new sponsor here to the program, Morgan & Morgan. They are indeed America's largest injury law firm. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years, and they've recovered over $30 billion for their clients. And not only are they one of our new sponsors here on the program, did you know they're also the official law firm partner of WWE? And perhaps what I love most about Morgan & Morgan is that they truly are for the people. And today they're coming in hot. They want to hook up one lucky fan with 2 tickets to WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. It's going down this April 18th and 19th. That's right. They want to send one of you to Las Vegas to watch WrestleMania 42 live. Now, in addition to the 2 tickets to WrestleMania, they're also going to be giving this one lucky winner $2,000 to help cover their travel expenses to Las Vegas. Now, to enter, all you've got to do is text the word HEAT 42 to For the People. That's HEAT 42 to the number For the People. That's HEAT 42 to 484-373-6753 and follow the prompts. Don't miss out on your chance to watch WrestleMania 42 live. Just text HEAT 42 to For the People. There's no purchase necessary. Open to legal residents of the 48 contiguous United States and DC who are 18 and older. Sweepstakes in March 29th, 2026. This is a paid advertisement.
And do you got to talk some people off the ledge sometimes? And I don't mean as far as being despondent about the death. I know that's part of it as well, the psychology that you have to deal with. But also like, hey, we got a windfall here, and I'm just going to blow it on something.
Yeah, and usually it's not like a huge amount, but to them it is. And I'll tell you that story of just the other day. I had a 20-year-old girl. Her dad died, and she was coming into about 100,000. And I asked her, "What's your plan?" "Oh, I'm just going to take it out, and I'm going to buy a car." And it's coming from an IRA, so she's gonna have to pay taxes on it. It's going to push her up a tax bracket. She's going to lose 25-30% of it right off the bat. So the 100,000 goes to 70,000, and she wants to buy a $45,000 car. And I just said, "Well, slow down a second, slow down. You know, this is the first bit of money you've ever come into. This is your father's legacy to you to make the rest of your life comfortable, and you want to blow it in one shot." And by the end of the year, if she had went that way, she'd probably be in debt because of car payment, whatever. Like, she gets into an accident, the car's totaled, she's done. So I said, let's think about it. You know, you can still get the car, but let's do something where you put a little money down or payments, but then you're using the rest of that money, grow it. Hell, use the dividends and interest, the monthly interest that comes in on this to make your car payments until it's paid off, and then you still have something. Let it grow, let it work for you. People are so quick to just spend it with no concept. One thing, and I'm not trying to it's not about Fidelity, but they offer these youth accounts. I got them for our kids, which are really, really cool. A 13-year-old can go and get an account, and it's their own account. They can actually buy, sell, trade investments. And it's
really
kids how to do it. So like we got them for our kids, and we force the kids to, you have to invest it in something, and we don't care what it is. You know, we say pick a mutual fund, research, buy stock, do something. And here's a really funny story. So my son, he's 12. He went, well, okay, he got into it and he started studying. So he wanted 2 things. One, he wanted Nintendo stock because he likes the video games. And it worked out pretty well. So for a year, it's done well. But the second one, which he just got, was he thought about what's the world going to need, and he was like, AI is the big thing. So he researched companies that build like the technology for the AI. And I forgot what the name of the stock was. I'd have to look it up. It was like Rayon or something like that. It was kind of expensive, but he bought like 3 shares, and it's gone up like 60% in the past. And every about once or twice a month, he looks at it and he's like, "Oh, it's doing great, but I don't want to sell yet. Hold on to it." So I think I wish somebody had done that for me.
Holy cow, me too. You got a 12-year-old kid that is researching who's going to benefit from AI.
Yeah, that's how he.
Like, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, he's a sharp kid. My wife's smart, obviously, so that's where he gets it from. But yeah, that's how he picked out what he wanted to invest in. It's pretty cool.
Spike, we tried to never get into politics, but it's hard. It's impossible not to, because politics have affected so much in the world today, a disproportionate amount than probably in the past. But the new Trump accounts for the kids. These things to me seem like a terrific idea to get people, forget about the name of it, forget about the president and the partisan stuff, but the accounts for kids, it seems to me a great idea to get people started investing at an early age like this.
It absolutely is. It's brilliant. It's the greatest thing. I mean, I'm right there with you. Kids, they need that education. And even the parents take it and they take the $1,000 and just put it in something. And by the time they're 18, you know the rate. If you can do what, 5 or 10% every year for 20 years, what does that come out to?
Yeah, I just looked at some of the day, 11% rate, which is about basically what S&P has returned in its history over a 10-year period. Will triple your investment in about 10 years.
Right. So if you do 20 years, it's because it's for newborns.
Right.
It's not like you can be 14 and just go get $1,000. It's only for newborns. I've looked into it. So I was like, I'll get my kids these, and realize it's not for any kid under 18. It's just for newborns. But you do that for 18, 20 years. If you're tripling it every 10 years.
Right. Yeah, it's a remarkable thing. People always talk about, timing the market. And I've always thought it's the old adage, it's time in the market. The market goes up 90% of the time. So to be able to short the market, you not only have to be brilliant to be able to figure out what's going down, but also you have to figure out what's going down when. Because if your timing is wrong, even though you're right the direction of it, you can go bust waiting for it to happen. Is that what you preach as well? That's more of time in the market than trying to figure out when do I get in and when do I get out?
Again, I don't go into the real detailed financial plan. My thing is you can't sell when you're down. You only lose if you sell at a loss.
Right.
And so, the time is, if it's up, that's a good time to sell.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sorry, Conrad, did you have something?
Yeah, I do want to ask, one of the most common things that you see that people are just making a mistake on, it's the basics, it's the fundamentals, but it's something that more often than not, people just miss and don't account for. Well, I'm just wondering, what are the biggest mistakes that you see? Like when you're dealing with people, and you realize, hey, with the benefit of hindsight, they probably wish that they had done A, Y, or B, or X, Y, or Z, or A, B, or C. Is it just getting started? Is that it? Is it that they lack life insurance? They didn't have the right advisor. They didn't know where to get started. They were overwhelmed.
Well, the biggest thing to me is frivolous spending. Just spending instead of putting it away.
Hey, you quit talking about me.
But the one thing that I see in my role are IRAs, because if somebody dies and the beneficiary is not a spouse, they have to open up what's called an inherited IRA, which has a 10-year shelf life. And managing that it's tricky, because when you're taking money out, you're taxed. But if you leave it all in there and only take out the minimum at the end of the 10 years, you have the same thing, but you got to take it all out in one shot. If you're talking about the falls of why people don't accumulate wealth over the course of their life, is that what, or are you talking about?
Well, we're just trying to give some life hacks here. I think there's a lot of people right now who are really feeling the squeeze. Maybe they're overwhelmed by debt. They're feeling like they're stuck making the minimum credit card payments, and they're wanting to get themselves back on track. And John and I have always been preaching, hey, the best debt is no debt. You want to get yourself debt free as quick as you can, and then direct as much of that capital into investing.
Right.
And quit worrying about the timing of, hey, am I buying at the right time? Buy companies you believe in. And so sort of set it and forget it. Leave it alone. Time is on your side. And I think a lot of people are used to looking at, well, I bought it here. Now, when do I sell it? I think maybe they're overthinking that. I think the first step, though, is, hey, let's get out of debt. And then I heard you say at the very beginning of our chat today, hey, try to set aside like 25% of your gross monthly income. Every single paycheck, set that aside and sort of what I call pay yourself. So instead of just paying a credit card or paying rent or paying a car payment, we got to pay ourselves. And your best practice is 25%. Is that what that sounds like?
I mean, just the throw out. I mean, save something, but you've got to set aside something from every paycheck and just make it the way you live. That I'm going to put something into savings every week or every 2 weeks that I cannot touch. That's there for that fund. I mean, you always hear the things where you're supposed to have 2 months salary as backup as your safety net at all times. And how many people, what percentage of the United States has that?
Not a lot.
5%. I mean, it's crazy how many people live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. And I mean, you also hit the head with credit cards. I mean, the way they give credit at 30% interest to people that have no idea what that means. So they run up a $2,000 credit card and it takes them 15 years and $40,000 to pay it off.
Right.
It's almost criminal the way they get away with that stuff.
And Spike, it almost sounds like, so many people out there, and I've been that way myself, before I started, getting into finance, and it's like, okay, I'm going to hit it big one of these days. And when I do, that's when I'm going to save all my money and everything. But maybe you will, and maybe you won't. But whether you do or not, what you're saying is, it sounds like, is start figuring out the way to save now. I think people think sometimes, I don't have enough money to save. But if you just start saving and start the practice of it and get in the mindset of saving it, whether it's $100 a week, whether it's $50 a week, whether it's $500 a week, whatever that is, if you start saving it, that compounding interest is going to benefit you later in life because you did start.
Right. Yeah. And we were talking about this, and I forgot where I heard the stat, but I truly believe that it's real, that something like 90% of the United States millionaires never made more than $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't rich people. They were just frugal. And it doesn't mean cheap. It just means smart with your money. What's funny is that generation, they're probably in the 70s, 80s, but came from like the World War II era, and their parents were from the Great Depression. My grandparents had money, but to the day my grandmother died, she still canned her own beans, coupons. It was set in their mind that, money is something, it's, I hate to say it, sounds goofy, but it's precious, and you should treat it as such. Even if you have it, you still take care of it. So you just don't go out and buy something just because you can. You should. Plus, there's a little satisfaction of saving it up and waiting for whatever it is. The other thing, stupid things, takeout, that $5 cappuccino or what, now it's $10 cappuccino every day. Take that, put that money away, and you'd be amazed how quickly that builds up for you.
Spike, my grandfather was one of them was a minister, and passed away, I believe, in the 90s, so many years ago, 30 years ago. But he never had any money. He was a preacher in a little small community. He's always for his life. And so when he passed away, my father was the one that had really, how an elderly parent will move, around one of the kids. Well, my parents were the ones that took care of my mother's dad, grandfather, and my mother's mother. And when he passed away, some of his other siblings, of my mother's siblings, said, okay, do we need help with the funeral? And my dad said, no, he has over $100,000 in the bank.
Right.
They couldn't believe it, and that was a massive amount of money, for a person, but he had just saved a little bit every single week, and he was diligent about it. He was meticulous about it. It's got to be very heartwarming to you to have a second career where you're helping people through traumatic experiences in their life, but also you're doing something that's going to benefit them and make their life better for the rest of their life. That's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
It does. And every once in a while, as I said, you do develop bonds with these people because you are helping them out at a stressful time. And, every once in a while you'll get like just an email or a message from somebody from a year or two ago and just go, hey, thanks, we're doing great. And thanks for helping us. There is a lot of satisfaction with that, especially when you totally turn somebody's mindset around. from I'm in trouble to no, you're actually okay. We can help you. We can, it is cool. It is cool. It's very different from the pro wrestling world, but it's amazing. You know what I always think is funny is there's a little bit of every job in every job, so even from like locker room politics and things like that, the way you deal with people, all of that transcends into this job, the psychology of it. You know what I mean? Because you have to, you got to get in tune with the person that you're speaking with to get them to kind of see the light. So,
and Spike, the when you're dealing with people that are in these situations, what is the average or what is the percentage of people that know nothing about finance when they come to you?
70%, I would say. I mean, if there's a decent chunk of money, and in a typical thing, it's the parents are the ones that are dying and the kids are inheriting it. If there's multiple siblings, there's usually one in the family that's on top of everything and kind of knows what's going on and guides everyone, so you get the help. But if you're just dealing with like one beneficiary, be it like a spouse, a widow, or a young kid, they most of the time know nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we say. That's just a matter of education, not a matter. Right. For people out there that are sitting there thinking, I know nothing about finance. You and I didn't either when we were wrestling. We knew nothing about it. That's more common than it is not than uncommon. It's not a matter of intelligence; it's a matter of education.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like it's not hard. Somebody has to expose you to it.
That's right. Spike, that's the key thing. It's not hard. I mean, it's not rocket science. This is not something that's really difficult to figure out. It's like Peter Lynch says, that my favorite books, know what you own. Like your son saying, I want to buy a Nintendo because I love that company. The stock goes up because you know what you own. He says, I want to research AI. Know what you own. He knows it. Here's a 12-year-old kid who's making great investments because he's buying something that he understands. And that is the key to so much of this, is just simply do things that you understand. You don't have to sit there and try to figure out crypto or whatever else. If you can, wonderful, but you don't have to. It's just a matter of doing some common sense stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes people get in over their heads. They get a little bit of a nice account going, and they start going into margin and options, and then they lose it because they don't know what they're doing. So sometimes you can be a little too smart for your own good. And I've seen that before, where like somebody dies and they've got $300,000 in margin debit. the family's like, what is this? You gotta be careful with that. Don't walk before you run.
Let's talk about that. How do our listeners identify a great, maybe we'll call it a tag team partner? Because I think a lot of people may be overwhelmed and they hear a story like you just shared and they think, well, I don't want that to happen. What is the best practice? What are some tips and tricks to looking for a financial advisor to partner with? Because I do feel like a lot of people would just feel better knowing, hey, if I'm not sure what to do, I want to have somebody's brain I can pick. How do they identify the right fit for them or their family?
Well, I mean, I can only speak from where, like, the companies that I've worked for, with like Fidelity, even Merrill Edge, and a lot of the big companies that you can have accounts with online, they've got managed accounts, but they don't have an assigned individual advisor, so that they put them in a portfolio of, let's say, mutual funds that gets reallocated every year based off of the information you're putting in. And those are relatively inexpensive, but they're nice because they are managed and they are invested, and you can keep an eye on them. If you want to go up to like having your own individual, a human being, like at a branch office, you just got to find the person that you like. I mean, you have to have that rapport with someone. I would say if you know nothing, you might want to look for, an advisor or a managed account until you learn. But it's so easy, especially with some of these companies, speaking for myself, for Fidelity, anybody, you don't have to be a client, just go to the website and there's a ton of information, how to invest, how to advise, what investments. Well, here's the breakdown. Here are your CDs and bonds. Here are your mutual funds. Here are your stocks. Here are EFTs or ETFs. I always get that mixed up. And you just learn about it. it's not, as I said, it really isn't that difficult. It's not that difficult at all. You don't want to get into like day trading. You don't want to buy sell it the next day. You want to just park it in something and let the market do its thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, last question I want to ask, Spike, with regard to what you do now, I know that you see a lot of ups and downs and a lot of different scenarios. How critical do you think is it to have life insurance? I don't think we talk enough about that. And I know you have some experience with that. What is your stance and advice on life insurance?
Essential. I mean, if you've got a family or if you've got kids, it's absolutely essential. I mean, if you're single 60-year-old with no dependents, it's probably not essential. And there's two types. I mean, it depends. If you're just talking about term insurance just to protect your family, it's relatively cheap and it's easy to get. Whole life is another type of investment where that can be like a retirement vehicle, but it's much more expensive. So I mean, if you can afford it, whole term insurance, I look at that as an investment vehicle or retirement vehicle. I look at term as protection. So as I said, if you have a family, if you have kids, if you have anybody that wouldn't be able to survive without your income coming in, you absolutely need to have insurance.
Right. Well, Spike, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you. Do you want to promote anything? Do you want to tell anybody why you're out there?
No, because I don't do anything in the wrestling business, but I will be out at Vegas.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, awesome. I will be too.
Yeah, we'll all be there. I got to ask, what is that thing behind you?
The big statue?
The gold thing to your left.
To my left.
That gold shield thing. What is that? No, the circle.
Oh, that's a Mayan calendar. That's how I keep up with Gerald Briscoe's birthday. That's the old Mayan calendar. I bought it down on the Yucatan Peninsula down there. I went down there one time down to Cancun or something and found that down there. It's just a replica. It's not worth much of anything. It's just a souvenir.
I thought it was like a belt at first. I was like, wait, no.
No. It's that's a Mayan calendar. I joked that's how I keep up with Mr. Briscoe's birthday. There's Mr. Briscoe right in here somewhere. There's Oklahoma right there. It's yeah.
Cool. All right. Well,
thanks so much, Spike. We appreciate the time, and we'll see you at WrestleCon. Go check out
Spike
at WrestleCon. It's going to be the place to be this Las Vegas WrestleMania season.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, fellas, you know what time it is. It's time to level up. Blue Chew just dropped something crazy. We're talking next level championship belt, gold plated energy. Blue Chew Gold is the newest innovation from the #1 chewable ED brand. And buddy, it ain't your grandpa's little blue pill. No, sir. This is the 4-in-1 beast that's setting the gold standard for performance. We're talking 2 ingredients for blood flow to keep that rocket pumping, mixed with apomorphine and oxytocin to turn up the arousal and connection in your brain and body. Blue Chew Gold dissolves under your tongue, and it works in as little as 15 minutes. That means you can get it on quicker and stay in the game longer. Elevation without hesitation. Peak passion and peak performance all in the single tablet. Man, ladies, if you're listening, just go ahead and send your man the link and make him a trophy husband with Blue Chew Gold. Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month of Blue Chew Gold with the code JBL. That's promo code JBL. Just visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, John, that was a blast. I love catching up with Spike, man. Who would have thought after all those crazy bumps we saw that guy take, now he's over here and he's the smart one in the room. Look at there. Look at there.
That's right. There's all those crazy bumps that he's still walking. I've asked him several times when I asked him about how you feeling. He feels fine. I mean, he took that choke slam. He took the one time from inside the ring to the floor. Yeah. We just landed on his back from Undertaker. I mean, Taker looked at him like, I just killed him. I think I've actually killed him. And he was fine. He is just about the toughest human being on the planet. And one of the smartest, as we just found out as well.
And boy, he's doing the Lord's work. He's trying to spread positivity and some good information out there. And when it comes to information, boy, I stumbled across something in the last few weeks since we've been doing this show that I thought, hey, the world needs to see. Each and every week we do spend a little bit of time talking about, where should you invest? And we also talk about real estate. I, of course, am the mortgage guy on Twitter. Would love to be able to help you with that. But we answered a question recently about, hey, is now the right time to buy? And you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this. I know you view your home as more of, hey, it's your home. It's not really an investment. But for most everyday millionaires, the way Spike was just describing them, the equity in their home is a big piece of their portfolio. And I'm a big believer in the old school economics of supply and demand. And right now we are at the peak of a buyer's market. We've got this influx of inventory. We've got more inventory than we've had in years and years. And for whatever reason, that means you have more leverage right now. You have more negotiating power. But when the rates move, all of a sudden that's going to flip flop. It may become a seller's market again. That's what we experienced during COVID. So are there good deals out there to be had right now? I believe so, but don't just take my word for it. Let's ask our very special guest. I'm really honored to have him here on the program, James Schlimmer. James, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. I love the approach you guys are taking where you're talking about finances and helping people kind of take that first step to take control of their life. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for jumping on with us. First of all, give us a little bit of your background. I know you've been in the title business and the real estate technology business, but you've really got your finger on the pulse about what's going on nationally. Talk to us a little bit about your background and then tell us a little bit about what you're seeing right now in 2026.
Yeah. So I have been for 13 plus years. I've owned title companies in the state of Florida. I helped build a national title company. I've established lenders. I have kind of made a career in real estate. I'm also building a real estate technology platform from the ground up that I'm pretty excited about. So it's kind of like, just like John, I would imagine for you, it's like you start making money in the wrestling business. That's kind of a pivotal milestone. Well, I make an income from kind of establishing a great experience for consumers. And I'm not a real estate agent, but I track housing just probably as granular as you could, from the foreclosure market, which are distressed properties, to what's happening currently as of this week. I mean, literally, Conrad, as we're sitting here right now, the Fed is meeting. And now investors are have already priced in. They don't believe that they're going to lower rates again. But for the audience, try to make this like elementary school here. The Fed sets the Fed rate. That's their lever on how they can control the economy and the fight for inflation. When they do that, right, that affects the 10-year treasury. And Conrad, I know you know this, our industry kind of survives or dies based on where the 10-year treasury is. And that 10-year establishes the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. And that's where probably 6.2% as we're recording this right now, with probably not a chance that that's going to go down. However, when you think about Iran, you think about oil, you think about what's happening, there's so many external forces that are going to affect that interest rate. Once that interest rate falls just below 6, there's about 500,000 buyers that are just sitting there waiting. Now, on the other side of the coin, there's a supply and demand issue in real estate, as we know. Typical inventory is about 1.2 million pre-pandemic. Think existing homes that are on the market. We're sitting right now today at about 900,000. If you take single family, I think single family homes is about 697,000. With condos, you get to about 900,000. We're still 25% below. However, Conrad, you hit it. It's still so much better than where it's been for the last couple years, right? So you've got these, it's just a fascinating kind of whirlwind of events that are unfolding in real estate today. And if you are thinking about kind of taking that step, whether to build your net worth, which obviously your primary residence is usually the largest part of what people will do, but also if you want to get into real estate investing, it's a great hedge to the market. It's a great hedge to think like, wait a second, how can I ever control that we're going to go to war with Iran? And what is that going to do to oil, which has an effect on the stock market? Well, you absolutely can control renting or becoming a landlord and renting a property and having a steady income stream come in. You absolutely can identify maybe in your neighborhood a distressed asset or a homeowner that maybe is kind of hurting right now and may want to slide that property and the obligations associated with that property off their kind of balance sheet, and you can pick it up. There's all these different strategies that you can do to really increase your position, your net worth in real estate. And that's kind of what excites me. I don't want to kind of banter, but if you want, I'll hit you with kind of what's going on in the country, and I'll just go with it right now. And then you stop me if you think sometimes I get a little bit too excited, but I just think it's so much fun right now. If you look at it, inventory, this particular year over year right now is up 6.35%. That's going to continue to happen. And the other part that's really interesting here is that Americans over 70 hold about 26% of all the US housing wealth, which is the same as that 40 to 54-year-old age group today, right? Now, what's happening here is they're not letting those properties go, which is part of the supply and demand issue. Why are they not letting them go? Because rates are where they are. They're probably sitting on a great rate. They're not really willing to let those properties go. And that's another issue that's affecting why buyers aren't buying why they should. So something to think about. If we look at days on market right now, we're sitting at about 128 days on market in the nation. That's up 11% year over year. So think about that. Those sellers that were trying to sell their homes, it's sitting there another 11% longer, 128. We step into the foreclosure. I love tracking foreclosures, but to be honest with you, you'll see a lot of stuff on the internet about foreclosures going through the roof and the kind of the buzzwords with percentages. If you think about the great financial crisis, we were sitting at almost 2 million bank-owned properties. That was just the peak. That's the most we probably have ever seen or ever will see in our lifetime. So when I give you these numbers, you can see that foreclosure starts. And when we talk about investing, this is a great thing to track in your local kind of county. And what you do is you go to the clerk of court site. You can do a search in the indexing there to be able to find, in Florida, it'd be called a lis pendens or notice of default. You can actually see the properties where that landlord or that owner is struggling. And there's a whole investment strategy you can go for by just identifying those properties. Foreclosures start, think if the bank filed the paperwork in the county where the property is located, are up 14% year over year. There's 25,572 foreclosure starts as of February throughout the entire country. If you think about the notice of sale, that's kind of that midway point, right, through the foreclosure process. That's when the judge says, yeah, this property is going to sell. It's going to sell on X date about a month from now. There's a strategy you can use when you're trying to go after and identify those properties because you need to do your due diligence on those. And we can talk about that. There was 18,869 of those. That's up 22% year over year. The big thing too, John and Conrad here, is that during the pandemic, there was a moratorium on foreclosures. So you start thinking about investing, right? There was this bottleneck of foreclosures all throughout the entire system based on COVID. Well, guess what? That's starting to break through now, and we're starting to see foreclosures kind of make their way. If you look at REOs, that's when the property went to auction, but nobody bought it. And now the bank actually has assumed ownership of that property. There are 4,077 of those that happened in February. Remember, in 2010, which was the worst we've ever seen, you're talking about 1.2 million annually. We're on pace for about 48,000 this year. So that's kind of some perspective or context, to compare. But there are just amazing investments to be made in that game. What's also really interesting is what's happening nationwide doesn't mean that's what's happening in Ohio or Connecticut or Massachusetts or Texas. It's different all across the country. And I can dive into those if you want, but you really want to know your market and you want to know your strategy, whatever that may be. And then there's also passive real estate investing that you can step into. That means you don't literally have to own the property. You're just essentially trusting a fund that goes and buys the property, does the due diligence on the investment, handles all the active management of the property. You're just believing in that fund. And they're out there where you can make money. And probably when I say you can make money, you could probably get into anywhere from 15 to 20% year over year returns in passive real estate investing by just picking the best GP. I'll stop there and let you guys jump in because I can keep going if you want.
Well, thank you for all the information, man. You're just a fountain of knowledge here. I think the first thing we want to hammer home for all of our listeners is, hey, if they're on the fence about is now the right time to buy, I think we have a pretty clear answer. Fair to say?
I would say without a doubt, because here's what's unfolding right now. May, we're going to have a new Fed chair that's coming in. Again, the Fed is meeting right in this moment, right? You have this conflict with Iran where oil is, right? Typically what happens is that we would expect, I almost look at this in a way, it sounds crazy, as this is like WrestleMania 18, what's unfolding right now. Because you got Hogan and The Rock. Everybody expected Hogan was the heel, Rock's the baby face. This is the match. And then guess what? The crowd didn't go for it. There were external forces to change it. Well, when the Iran conflict happened, and maybe part of the reason that this happened was that investors will flee to safe investments. There's nothing safer than US treasuries. So that 10-year treasury. And typically if they go there, right, demand for the treasury increases, you're going to see that the yield, which is that spread, is going to actually decrease. Except there are external forces that are playing here. It's like wizardry. And think about like Hogan, he was in Toronto, that's his place, right? But then also the power of Hulkamania. You have this inflation, right? And the concern of inflation with the rise in oil is an external force that's not bringing that 10-year treasury yield down. But in addition, you have this war and you have investors saying, we're going to spend more money on this war. We're going to go in depth further. And that's a force now that's keeping those interest rates up. But as soon as that 6.2, we're right there, Conrad. As soon as it hits 5.9, game on in real estate. And I'm saying that's 500,000 buyers. So if you're looking at homes right now and you're kind of on the fence, they're going to flood into the market. And guess what? The slight buyer's market is really kind of a seller's market just based on supply and demand because inventory is still low. So again, all it takes is this one little thing. The Fed comes back at 2 p.m. today and issues that we're going to lower the rate 50 basis points or 25 basis points. I don't believe they will. That's going to get us underneath 6, right? The new Fed chair is going to come in. We know his initiative from Trump is going to promote housing. Great. There were just 2 executive orders yesterday from the Trump administration to try to promote increasing the supply, which the goal from new construction to help lower the price of homes, as well as to entice credit unions and major banks to kind of lower their minimum capital requirement, right? If you think about that, which is a little bit scary if you think about it, because kind of how did the great financial crisis happen and the loose lending and the low capital requirements and over leverage? Again, I can go deep on here. All of that is unfolding before our eyes. But basic level information, if there's something that you're kind of on the fence about purchasing for a primary residence, now's the time to do it, in my opinion.
I think there's a lot of boo birds out there, the critics who say, hey, now's not the right time. I'm waiting for housing prices to fall. A lot of people believe that housing and real estate values are going to go down because they saw that in 2008 or in the shadows of 2008. And I routinely on Twitter say, hey, that was a once in a lifetime event. That's not going to happen again. Do we agree there? What do you say to those folks who say real estate values are going to fall? I'm going to wait until they come down.
Yeah, I would say that. Well, let me just give you this. The short answer to your question, they're already falling. And in some markets, they've already done that correction of 25 to 40%. In other markets, that's not the case. So what you saw, you hit the nail on the head during the great financial crisis, was that's the only time that's ever happened where property values have fallen that far. If I look at Huntsville, right, because I know that's where you're at and you care about, Huntsville median price is down 13.5% year over year. And I would argue, how much more do you want it to go? Because even during, it was maybe 20%. I don't know in Huntsville specifically, but in certain markets, we're down 35% in, you think, Punta Gorda, Florida, Southwest Florida, where they had the damage from the hurricanes and whatnot. So my counter argument to those folks is, how much more do you want it to go?
Yeah, I would even argue that the price reduction that we've seen in Huntsville specifically, it's more because people just assumed, hey, we can keep these COVID prices going forever. So I don't necessarily know that the cost to manufacture a house is going down. I don't think our costs to actually construct from the ground up, I don't think we're waiting on that to get more affordable. It's not going to get cheaper to build a new house, at least in my opinion. I think we've set a new precedent with, we all remember, 6 years ago, we started hearing really for the first time at scale about supply chain issues. That's the first time in my lifetime we've actually made that a buzzword, at least in American pop culture. And so we were understanding like, hey, it's harder to get plumbing fixtures, or it's harder to get chips in cars, or hey, there's a hardwood shortage, or whatever it may be. So people got accustomed to paying more for those items. Well, those companies, they're not going to say, oh, no, well, now we'll just give that profit back. No, they've kept prices high. So the cost to build a house from the ground up, I don't think we're waiting on that to come down. It's never going to come down. However, I do think that a lot of sellers, hopeful sellers, they thought, hey, maybe I can get my COVID high ask. And that's not the case. I think what we're seeing is sellers realizing, hey, I need to be more realistic about my list price. And I think that realization sinking in is why now is a great time to buy. I don't think that the actual value of the home is going down. I just think we have to be more realistic about, hey, it's what someone's willing to pay. And the cost of money is high right now, and there's uncertainty in the market. And some people can be scared away by that. But if we really follow Warren Buffett principles, we would be greedy when others are fearful. That's an opportunity. If there's more inventory than ever before, hey, I've got more leverage. My dollar should go further. I hate to say it this way, but make some low ball offers in the right circumstance, and boy, you get some great deals right now.
I 100% agree with you. And a lot of your context too, Conrad, is the retail market.
Yes.
Right. So when you start talking about to your listeners that want to invest, I want to take that first step forward. And I feel like real estate is safe. A lot of folks understand it and so forth. There are opportunities everywhere in your market, in your local market. There are folks that are underwater. Unfortunately, there are divorces that are happening. There are people that have passed away. There are opportunities to be able to kind of step into the real estate investing game. And a great benchmark or how-to is to be able to look at the retail market. That kind of gives you the baseline. Hey, if homes I know are selling in Huntsville at a median price of $319,000 as of last week, okay, a real value is just underneath it, right? It's a great way to start.
John, we've talked a lot about real estate. Of course, this is what James and I do, but I know your wife, she's been working on housing a little bit in some pretty important areas of the country. What's your question for James today?
Yeah, she's done a little bit of housing in her history, which is, obviously she was the one that called calling the financial crisis, because house prices for the first time, to clarify, and you guys are right about what you said, nationally for the first time in history went down nationally, not just regionally in different places. That's what happened in the financial crisis, which nobody thought could happen. Then you have derivatives of derivatives, which kind of got out of hand. And that's what, snowballed and cascaded and caused the entire financial crisis. Doubt we'll ever see that again. I agree that that's most likely true because it's happened one time in the country's history. My question is about the five handle that we might get on rates. Specifically, you talked about seniors that have homes. When you get down, you mentioned over 70, just retirement age, you start getting to around 60% of homes owned by seniors in that area. And about 76% of those are not selling. Many are like my mother, who's have had a home there. She's 89 years old and had a home for most of a lot of her adulthood there, and she's not selling. But a lot of these seniors now are hurting with healthcare costs, and so there's going to be a refi that's going to happen. Second mortgage being taken out a lot of these homes because of that. Especially if we get down to a five handle on this. Do you think this is more, or you think it's both? Of a refi cycle that's going to happen, or you think it's more of a buying cycle that'll happen? And does it worry you that people are stepping away from treasuries around the world that could potentially drive up rates? So you might have conflicting pressures on rates globally.
Yeah. So I think your question is great. And let me address it. I believe we're absolutely going to see a refi boom. There's no question. It concerns me. What concerns me is that life's milestones, which are typically what push the housing turnover. And that could be having babies. Well, we're not doing that until we're older. Tenure in the home used to be, 8 years. Now it's sitting at 12, right? And you have your, I think you said your grandmother, right? Your grandmother is sitting there. I'm sorry, your mother, right?
Mother, yes.
Your mother is sitting there and she's not selling yet because it's like, well, where am I going to go? And where rates are right now, there's just this pent up of supply. There, at the same time, there's a pent up of demand and those forces. And what does that mean? That concerns me. Does it concern me from the standpoint that banks are still going to continue to make money? No, we're still going to figure out, we know how to take advantage of whatever the market is to be able to put the right offer and the right product in front of the consumer at the right time to make money, right? What's really interesting too, and you kind of went, is where the Treasury is going to go is like, there's only, our legislators love to pull the lever of rates because that's all they can do. And I was in the camp that, well, rates are going to come down immediately as soon as Biden gets out of office, or just before he was going to get ready to get out of office, that election cycle, they were going to just turn the rates down because they have the control to do that. And they didn't. Jerome Powell still very, 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 very tough, right? Now the belief is Kevin Warsh, when he comes in, well, hey, in quotes, he's Trump's puppet. He's going to come right in. He's going to force these rates to go down. He almost can't, based on what's happening globally right now. So what concerns me the most right now is you have all of these forces that are kind of contradicting conventional wisdom, right? And your mother, so let me ask you this, your mother, if she was to sell and make that decision, where would she go?
She won't.
She won't. She loves the home. Is that the house?
No. She, like 76% of seniors, like my mother, are not selling, and my mother's one of those. And for she's been in that home with my father. My father passed away years ago, but that's like a lot of seniors. And so there's if you sell the home, you have to buy another one, and even if you're trying to downsize or whatever else, she has no desire to do that. That home's been paid for a decade or two. So there's no reason that she would ever sell it, and she won't. And that's one of the issues with seniors who own so much homes. There may be a refi boom. The people of trying to, because specifically because of healthcare costs, but these people, most of them are not selling these homes.
Yeah, or a reverse mortgage boom may happen in that case. I guess I look at that as you're saying the 70% of seniors that won't sell. I can just look at that and just kind of generalize and say the house tenure overall is sitting at 12 years. That's the highest we've ever seen it, regardless of which demographic you're in. That right there creates a supply issue in the market, which drives up prices and keeps them high. And I don't know how any administrative decision can come in other than a dramatic decrease of the Fed rate, which can't happen when we're under inflationary times, especially with Iran and oil. So it's just, again, it's a really interesting conundrum that we're in, but all we can do is kind of just make the best of it, if that makes sense.
Well, there you go. We're getting a lot of information today about housing. We're going to continue the conversation in the coming weeks and months here on Have More Money Now. We hope that if you've been on the fence about looking to buy a house, that you'll take action. We don't know how much longer this particular set of circumstances will remain exactly the way they are. But as we're recording right now, it's a buyer's market, and we feel like you can get some great deals. Obviously, you're going to be looking at your monthly payment and your down payment. Those are going to be your two biggest things that you want to consider. But long term, those are not going to be significant decisions here. You want to buy, as I always like to say, the worst house on the best street. That's where you give yourself the best potential upside. Thanks for all the information today, James. We greatly appreciate your time and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, James.
Hey, I appreciate the time, guys. And remember, you make your money on the buy, not the sell.
That's exactly right. Well said. And be sure to follow James over on social media. We're going to be catching up with him in the coming weeks. We've got one last commercial we need to hit right now, John, and it's about our friends at Better Wild. I don't know if you love your dog the way I love my dog. Of course, we all love our dogs the same, but I have to admit I was not the best dog dad for a while. My dog Ginger really loved to lick her paws, and I just missed it. I thought she just liked to lick her paws. It was a dog thing. No, it's not. It's a sign of allergies. And what I've learned is that allergies in dogs often start in the gut. And when things get out of balance internally, it can show up everywhere. Our dogs can have issues with their skin or their ears or their digestion or even their energy. Just like us, dogs need good bacteria to strengthen their gut health and calm down their overactive immune system. That's why the wife and I started using Better Wild Allergy Relief Soft Chews for our pups, and they absolutely love the flavor. They think it's a treat, but it's really actually good for them. You see, Better Wild is designed to support your pet's allergy defense systems by strengthening their digestion and helping restore balance from the inside. These are the first and only chews with the Ancestral Advantage Wolf probiotics and natural ingredients proven to help reduce itching and support gut, immune, and skin health. So instead of just covering things up, you're actually supporting your dog at the source. Ginger is happier than ever. We gave them to her daily, and a few months later, man, she's like a different animal. Better Wild is committed to helping your dogs with clinically proven, veterinarian approved solutions that you can actually feel great about. And right now, Better Wild is offering our listeners up to 40% off at betterwild.com/JBL. That's betterwild.com/JBL for up to 40% off your order. betterwild.com/JBL. So, John, I wanted to go ahead and give us a moment to catch up on what we talked about last week. I can't believe this is real, but we had on our buddy Tony from Heritage Auctions, and we talked about the Hulk Hogan boots selling for $1 million. Well, last week, WWE announced that they were going to be auctioning off the right knee brace from WrestleMania 38, worn by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, earlier this week, we celebrated 316 Day. And on that particular day, Stone Cold himself appeared on the Busted Open morning show. And on that program, he revealed that, hey, he is probably never going to wrestle another match. That's probably it. So that knee brace will ultimately be called the knee brace from, or one of the two knee braces from Stone Cold's very last match. Well, as we're recording last night, after extended bidding, it sold for $58,000, John. Did you hear that? That's the final hammer price, $58,045 for the right knee brace, one of two that, as far as we know, was only worn in one match. What do you think of this, John?
I think it's awesome. And I can see why people would want to have this. I mean, this is something really cool. I mean, this is something iconic. And Steve is one of the, you know, when you talk about the goats of wrestling, you know, is Steve the GOAT? You could argue for a couple other guys that may or may not be, but Steve is in that running as far as the one to three guys that you would list as the GOAT. And this is the thing that a very iconic piece of equipment that he wore. I mean, this is really cool. I can see why somebody would want this in their man cave.
I totally get it too. One of the happy accidents last week when we talked to Tony is people started reaching out saying, hey, I wonder what my thing is worth. And one of those fellas was a friend of the show, Dave Milliken, who heard about the Fanatics auction. Well, he actually has a Stone Cold Steve Austin knee brace. That was his first knee brace. He started wearing it before WrestleMania 13, and he wore it through SummerSlam 99. That's when he switched to double knee braces. And at that time, he just got two brand new matching knee braces. But that one knee brace was there for WrestleMania 13, which wound up being the most celebrated match in WWE history, the first one inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. The following year at WrestleMania 14 was the start of the Austin era. Of course, that's when Stone Cold won the world title for the very first time and had his hand raised by Mike Tyson. The imagery of that moment is not lost on me because these Hogan boots just sold for $1 million. And what photo did they use? Hulk Hogan in Madison Square Garden with his hand being raised by Muhammad Ali. Well, 14 years later, there's Mike Tyson doing that for Steve Austin. But at WrestleMania 15, he was wearing the same knee brace. And that day he wrestled The Rock in their very first main event at WrestleMania. That knee brace was something that, you know, we thought was a cool collectible item, but we didn't know until the Hogan boots, hey, we should go photo match this and see what major moments we can attach it to. It was born out of our discussion here on the show. So we've created a new segment that we're going to be doing together, John and I, called WrestleWorth. And we want to talk to you. If you've got something on your mantle or your shelf and you don't have to sell it, but wouldn't you like to know, hey, what is this worth? Think of this almost like, I don't know, antique roadshow of wrestling. You want to know what that thing's worth? Well, why don't we ask our buddies at Heritage Auction? Tony's going to become a regular guest for us. We're going to break down what it is. And if you've got something and you're curious about the value, again, you're not committing to sell it, but hey, hypothetically, what is this worth? Send us an email. It's wrestleworth@gmail.com. Just tell us the story of how you got it. So it makes for good content. Send us some photos so we can show it off and take Tony's temperature. That's wrestleworth@gmail.com. And we'll have Tony from Heritage Auctions taking a look. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think, John.
This is going to be a lot of fun. And I saw 3 of the merchandise that people sent us, and these things are awesome. We'll reveal that probably next week, maybe all 3 of them. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but man, these things, it's world-class stuff that people have sent us to get priced. And again, I don't know if they're going to auction or not. You don't have to. We'll just send it to us and we'll price it for you. And you can make your own decision what you want, or at least you can go tell your neighbor, hey, this thing's worth this much according to JBL and Conrad.
I just think it's cool, because there's not like a collectible place to look that up. When I was a kid, I would get the Beckett magazine price guide and I'd say, hey, what is this Shaq rookie card worth, or that sort of thing. And these days, even in real estate, people will say, oh, let me go to Zillow and just see what it says my Zestimate is, or those sort of goofy things. But we don't really have a way of knowing, hey, what's that thing on my shelf in my man cave really worth? We'll find out at wrestleworth@gmail.com. Send us an email of your items and your story. We'll have Tony from Heritage jumping on with us. wrestleworth@gmail.com. And John, we did get some other great questions this week. I thought we should field some of those. It is always an important part of our process every week that we do here. One of our first questions is one I'll let you tackle. This is from Art of A. Gill. He says, any advice for a federal employee threatened with shutdowns annually, currently in the 3rd one since October? Yeah, this is something a lot of folks who work for the government, they're feeling the stress and pressure. And if you've traveled in the last week and you see, hey, it feels like things are moving slower through the airport, TSA has been affected too, John. Yeah. How do you plan for that? Is that something like what Spike was talking about? You need 2 months. I've heard people say 2 months, 3 months, even 6 months of their monthly reserves. What is the best practice that JBL recommends?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to get your debt in order. And look, if the shutdown is already hit and it's too late now for this cycle, for one, vote every one of these bozos out of office, because these guys are buffoons. They can't even keep the government open, and I'm talking about both sides. I'm talking about Republicans or Democrats. I mean, one of their jobs is you can't even keep the government open. I mean, these guys are just bozos. But that being said, if you're stuck in this, it's too late now for this cycle, but prepare for the next. Be in a position where you can go through several months of a downtime, whether it's a government shutdown, whether it's a layoff, whether it's whatever it may be. You've got to be able to do that. And to do that, you need to get your debt in control. So you don't need to have huge credit card debt. You don't need to have big debt that is out there. Get your debt in control, get a little money in the bank. That way you can weather these storms. And for those guys that are going through it now, look, I'm sorry. This is a terrible thing. I've been there in life where all of a sudden something hits you and you're not as prepared for it as you should be. And I feel for you. And I'm sorry that this has happened. But the only thing you can do is for next time is make sure that you're ready for something like this, because these bozos in Congress will do this again.
For a lot of our listeners, John, that feels like something that could be overwhelming. We're not here to necessarily recommend everybody's products or services, but I will say, if you're struggling right now, maybe Dave Ramsey could be of help. He has a book called Financial Peace, and he talks a lot about the baby steps. And one of those big baby steps is, hey, first of all, obviously we want to do the snowball debt method and get out of debt as quickly as possible. That's exactly what you said. Secondly, we do want to have some sort of a reserve set aside. But I know a lot of people skip the debt step, John, and they say, well, I can't afford to get rid of that, so let me just get my monthly debt and let me save up a few months of that. I understand wanting to have what I call that seatbelt. We hope we never need it, but if we do, boy, I'm glad we had it right now. I totally get that methodology, but I would say that becomes much easier if there's no debt. Like if you've got $1,000 car payment and you're going to have a 6-month reserve, well, now you need an extra $6,000. Well, how do you not need the $6,000? Get rid of the freaking car payment. And we heard earlier today, Spike talking about a young lady whose father left her $100,000. She just wanted to pay tax on that money and then turn around and buy a car. That is a depreciating asset. It's going to wind down to zero. If you drive past the junkyard, you'll see a whole bunch of big zeros. And I'm of the opinion that, the number one way to make sure that you can have that reserve is eliminating that debt. So I think you hit the nail on the head. It becomes a whole heck of a lot easier once you knock out the debt. And if you don't have a plan to get out of debt, I want to recommend that you at least look at the equity in your home. That's where I come in at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but the answer you may have been looking for is in the equity in your house. Just last week, John, We helped an IT specialist. He's a single dad in Tennessee, and he had a truck payment and 6 credit cards, and he was feeling the pinch. We were able to restructure that debt, combine it all into one lower monthly payment. He's saving $788 a month, and he's even getting to skip his next 2 house payments. So he's going to take his next 2 house payments plus his tax refund. He's going to be able to purchase another vehicle or have a nice little nest egg set aside for himself. But moving forward, he'll save $788 a month. Now, what he does with that money is up to him. He can do one of 2 things. He could, well, I guess there's 3. There is a third option. The silly option is, hey, let's go blow it and have a great time. Not the best plan. The second best option is, hey, what if we start saving that and paying ourselves and investing? I think that's the real passion play that we want to push here today. Is you make enough money right now. You may not feel like you do, but the number one thing we've got to do is control those expenses and then pay yourself. You heard Spike say, hey, I want to pay myself 25% of every paycheck. If that feels awfully lofty or ambitious for you right now, there's only one way to take control of that, and that's to get rid of the debt. You got to stop the insanity. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't want to refinance. I want to wait until the rates are lower. Buddy, if you've got credit card debt, you're not that rate conscious. You wouldn't be paying 30% interest if rate was all that important. You know it's too high. You know it's a problem. You need a plan. You didn't plan to get into all this debt, but you will need a plan to get out of the debt. Let's have a conversation. It's no cost, no obligation right now at savewithconrad.com. But I do want to challenge you. Hey, if you do nothing, what changes? What does that look like? Hope is not a strategy. Take control of your finances. Keep more of your own money. Get a plan to get out of debt and go right now to savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket. We're routinely helping customers with credit scores in the 500s. The government knows this is a problem. They removed the minimum credit score requirement this past November. We've been able to help families with credit scores in the 530s and 540s. Those folks wouldn't qualify for a car loan, but they do qualify to get rid of all their debt using their home equity. This is a real life hack for the folks who need it. Savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. John, we've got one more question today, and then we'll put a button on today's show. This one comes to us from CB, MMC panel host. He says GameStop and AMC both cratered. Is the era of the meme stock dead, John? Or could something else conceivably blow up the way those two did? And if so, what's the best way to keep an eye on them? You and I have never spoken about that. Meme stocks. We all remember the silliness during COVID of AMC and GameStop. Did you ever play in any of that stupidity?
Slightly, yes. I went in some chats just for fun. You know, I love to gamble, and that's gambling to me. It's not investing. And I went in some chats, and I figured out what people were looking to buy and what people were going in as a herd mentality. And I did buy a couple and did okay. The problem is, you know, it's like musical chairs. You're going to be left holding the bag at some point. Those things are on crash, and they did. But I had a lot of guys who, some hedge fund guys that were monitoring chats to see where the next meme stop was. But again, that's gambling to me. But I love gambling. But that's not investing. I would not ever try to get in meme stock investing, because at some point somebody's going to be left holding the bag. You may get in and you may have something go up. That has nothing to do with fundamentals. That has nothing to do with worth. That has something to do with just herd mentality and getting lucky on a trend and a gambling mentality. But, you know, again, if that's what you want to do and that's your extra money, have fun. But understand that's not investing.
I love the way you strategize that. Just cut it right to the base. I think that makes sense. It is indeed gambling. So if you've got the market and the bankroll for gambling, go get it.
Have fun. You know, if you enjoy doing that and you got extra money and that's how you enjoy yourself. That's what I did. I had fun and I made a little money. I didn't get caught holding the bag on. I could have, but the thing went up instead of going down. I made some money. It didn't go up because of fundamentals. Didn't go up because of worth more. It went up because people were buying it during COVID and driving it up. So it was fun. But remember, it's a fun thing. It's not a thing for investing and not wise to play that very often.
Well, it is wise to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, and tell a friend about Have More Money Now. John, this was fun today. You know, we got to visit with Spike Dudley. We got to hear some practical advice there. We got a little bit of a housing update. We answered some questions. I had fun. We should keep this going.
It is fun. Yeah. And I love to talk about the rates. And that's something, geopolitics affects so much. That's why we talk about geopolitics some on this show, because it does affect finance, and we're not, for one side or the other as far as what we talk about. But man, it's interesting where rates are going to go and all this crazy conflict that's going on around the world and how that's going to affect rates, how it's going to affect housing in your community. So what's going on in Iran right now does affect housing in your community by way of looking at this, how it affects rates, how it affects the global market, the buying and selling of treasuries, which affects rates. It's really a really interconnected world right now, and it's fun to try to disseminate where things go.
We're going to be talking about it here next week. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and tell a friend about Have More Money Now with John Layfield.